So we're in the life of Jesus, part 66. We're on our Christ-like conversations, number 11. We're going to, I kind of changed up the structure this time of how we're going to go through this, but let's read the passages from the Sermon on the Mount that we're focusing on. Let's go through those. Starting with Matthew chapter 5. He says, "You have heard that it was said to the people long ago, 'You shall not murder, and anyone who murders will be subject to judgment. But I tell you that anyone who is angry with a brother or sister will be subject to judgment. Again, anyone who says to a brother or sister, Raka, is answerable to the court. And anyone who says, you fool, will be in danger of the fire of hell.'" In other words, just insulting somebody out of anger. Right? Jesus goes on to say, "Therefore, if you are offering your gift at the altar, and there remember that your brother or sister has something against you, leave your gift there in front of the altar. First go and be reconciled to them. Then come and offer your gift. Settle matters quickly with your adversary who is taking you to court. Do it while you are still together on the way, or your adversary may hand you over to the judge, and the judge may hand you over to the officer, and you may be thrown into prison. Truly I tell you, you will not get out until you have paid the last penny." And there's that idea we talked about of not allowing things to escalate. Because the longer you let them escalate, the worse it gets. Jesus also said, "Again, you have heard that it was said to the people long ago, 'Do not break your oath, but fulfill to the Lord the vows you have made.' But I tell you, do not swear an oath at all, either by heaven, for it is God's throne, or by the earth, for it is his footstool, or by Jerusalem, for it is the city of the great king. And do not swear by your head, for you cannot make even one hair white or black. All you need to say is simply yes or no. Anything beyond this comes from the evil one." So we talked about there that is our tendency to use logical fallacies. That we say something in a certain way that it doesn't really match up what we really meant. So we can kind of cover our tracks.
And we dance around.
And dance around what we're saying. He says, say what you mean what you say.
Right.
"You have heard that it was said, an eye for an eye or a tooth for a tooth. But I tell you, do not resist an evil person. If anyone slaps you on the right cheek, turn to them the other cheek also. And if anyone wants to sue you and take your shirt, hand over your coat as well. If anyone forces you to go 1 mile, then go with them 2 miles. Give to the one who asks you, and do not turn away from the one who wants to borrow, or do not turn away from the one who wants to borrow from you." So this is the idea that you, as the disciple of Jesus, are the one who reaches out. Right? That the responsibility is on you. Jesus said, "Do not judge, or you too will be judged. For in the same way you judge others, you will be judged, and with the measure you use, it will be measured to you. Why do you look at the speck of sawdust in your brother's eye, and pay no attention to the plank in your own eye? How can you say to your brother, 'Let me take the speck out of your eye,' when all the time there's a plank in your own eye? You hypocrite, first take the plank out of your own eye. Then you will see to remove the speck from your brother's eye." Right? In other words, the way you treat somebody else is how you should expect to be treated back. If you treat someone with disdain, why are you surprised when they treat you back with disdain?
Right.
"Therefore, everyone who hears these words of mine," and so again, this is important. Okay, yeah, those things are, do we really have to do those things? Let's listen. "Therefore, everyone who hears these words of mine and puts them into practice is like a wise man who built his house on the rock. The rain came, and the streams rose, and the winds blew and beat against that house, yet it did not fall, because it had its foundation on the rock. But everyone who hears these words of mine and does not put them into practice is like a foolish man who builds his house on sand. The rain came, the streams rose, and the winds blew and beat against that house, and it fell with a great crash." When we talk about this is not a bad day, in context of where this is at in the sermon, this is Judgment Day. And so he says, okay, these things I've told you about how to interact with other people, the people who listen as my disciples and do them, on Judgment Day will stand. Those people who hears these things I say and go, yeah, we don't really need to do that, will fall on Judgment Day. So it's serious that we do these things. Now the thing is, we read through that and we agree that, yeah, that's how we should talk to people. That's how we should interact with people. That's how we should treat people. And then we say, and how in the world do we do that? Right? And that's what we're trying to do. We're trying to take that and give the practical little bitty steps that help you do these big things. So we're going to kind of go through the review here, and I've taken out the details. Okay, So we're going to see how much you know. Let's not spend too much time on this because we do need to get to the additional stuff that we're adding on at the end today. But let's kind of quickly go through the review and see what you know. It is your job as a disciple of Jesus to establish or reestablish safety. Why is it your job?
He's a Christian.
Right, because you're the one imitating Jesus. Jesus is the one who came into the world and established safety. Jesus is the one who commanded us that, again, you go the extra mile.
Right.
You're the one that gives. All right. So number 2, as a disciple of Jesus, make sure you know your purpose in having a Christ-like conversation. Why is it important to know your purpose?
Because you get straight from it.
Right, because you'll get sucked off of it, right? Where will you wind up at? We said there's 3 things. I don't know if y'all remember or not. What are the 3 things you'll wind up doing? Winning, trying to win, trying to punish, or trying to keep the peace. If you don't remember what your purpose is and work back towards your purpose. So, again, your job to establish safety, your job to know your purpose and stick with it. All right, so pay attention to when safety is being compromised and or the situation is being escalated. Again, you're going on the road, on the way to the court, it's being escalated, recognize it's being escalated, settle it then and there, and don't let it. How do you recognize that it's being escalated?
You go to silence or violence.
Silence or violence. People's voices are going up, or people's jaws are being clenched. Right? So either they're going to silence or violence, you're going to silence or violence, or both of you are going to silence or violence. Right? Recognize that it's being escalated. So when you recognize it's being escalated, then you know that you need to go back and reestablish safety. Right? Now, how would you reestablish? What's the first thing that you might need to do to reestablish safety? Before you lay your gift at the altar, apologize. Right? Before you lay your gift at the altar, if they have something against you, go and make it right. Now, say you didn't actually do something wrong, but they think you did something wrong. What do you have to do? Y'all remember the word?
Is it reframe or mirror?
Contrast. Yeah, Jesse was saying this. I don't want to, but I do want to. That's contrasting. I don't want to do what you think it is that I'm trying to do. But let me explain what it is that I would like to do. Contrasting. Right. All right. Now, establish a mutual purpose. What's the difference between a purpose and a mutual purpose?
Mutual purpose is you share.
Right. You have your purpose. They may not have the same purpose as you.
Right, yeah.
Right. You've got to find a mutual purpose that you share. And we use the crib. Crib was commit to finding a mutual purpose. Because if you don't commit, you won't do it. Right? Even if it takes more than one conversation just to find a mutual purpose. Commit to a mutual purpose, or recognize the difference between a strategy and a purpose. Recognize the difference between a strategy and purpose. Because sometimes you might actually have the same purpose, you're just trying to accomplish it by different strategies. Invent a mutual purpose if you don't have one. Right? If you realize that it's not just a difference in strategies, we straight up have a difference in mutual purposes, invent a mutual purpose. Then B, brainstorm. So once you figured out what your shared purpose is, you have to now have a new strategy. Right. So establish mutual respect. How do you establish mutual respect? This is a very important one. This is a very, very important we've talked about. How do you establish mutual respect? Go ahead.
Yeah.
Think about how you would be treated.
Right. You're right. This is where you take the plank out of your own eye first, right? And don't judge lest you yourself be judged. Would you want to be treated the way you're treating this person? If you were them, how would you respond to the way you're talking to them? Right? Now, say you have no respect for this person in any way, shape, or form. What's the one way you can have respect for this person?
God, yeah.
Image of God. Now, I didn't think about this until last night to use this quote. So it's not going to be in your notes, so if you would listen. Does everybody know who C.S. Lewis is? Lion, the Witch, and the Wardrobe? Right? He wrote a lot of other stuff besides Lion, Witch, and Wardrobe. One of his most famous sermons is called The Weight of Glory. And that explains the title. This is the conclusion to that sermon, and it will explain what that title means. But he talks that most of the sermon is about how that we will ultimately bring glory to God by being glorified back into the image of God. And he closes it with this. it may be possible for each to think too much of his own potential glory hereafter. In other words, you can get get hung up on thinking about how you're going to be glorified, right? And we can think too much about that. He said it is hardly possible for him to think too often or too deeply about that of his neighbor.
Wow. Good point.
In other words, are we thinking about how our neighbor is going to be glorified into the image of God? In other words, we might spend so much time on thinking about how we're going to be glorified in the image of God, but rather we should be spending more time on how our neighbor is going to be glorified into the image of God. And he explains why. The load or weight or burden of my neighbor's glory should be laid daily on my back. On my back. Right? In other words, it should be my burden to help him become more like Jesus. Right? That's what he's talking about, the weight of glory. The weight of my neighbor's glory, that he be made into the image of Jesus through my interactions with him. Right? Now, but listen what he says. He says, the load or weight or burden of my neighbor's glory should be laid daily on my back. A load so heavy that only humility can carry it. And the backs of the proud will be broken. I cannot in pride carry the weight of my neighbor's glory.
Right.
I cannot out of pride speak to you and help you and interact and help you become the image of God that you were created to be.
Right.
He goes on to say, and think about these things. It is a serious thing to live in a society of possible gods and goddesses. To remember that the dullest and most uninteresting person you talk to may one day be a creature which, if you saw it now, you would be strongly tempted to worship.
Wow.
Okay, so the oddest, strangest, ugliest, annoyingest person you ever met, if they were glorified into the image of God that they were created to be, you would be so in awe of them, you would be tempted to fall down at their feet and worship them. Think about that. That is every single human being. If you saw them glorified and fully perfected into the image of God that they were created to be, which one day we will see, those of us that follow Christ, we will see them that way. It would be so much that you would fall down at their feet. You think about John falling down at the feet of an angel who isn't made in the glory, in the image of God. Right? Think about seeing another human being in the image of God that they were originally created to be. We would be tempted to fall down at their feet and worship Him. And that's every single human being. He goes on to say, if you saw now, you'd be strongly tempted to worship. But here's the other side to think about. Or else a horror and a corruption such as you now meet, if at all, only in a nightmare. Okay? Every human being is on two roads. Is on one of two roads.
Right.
Working towards the perfection of the image of God they were originally created to be in the image of Christ, or working away from that and going further and further and further away from that. Right? And he goes on to say, there are no ordinary people. You have never talked to a mere mortal. Nations, cultures, arts, civilizations, these are mortal. And their life to ours is the life of a gnat. We get hung up on countries and we get hung up on the world, things of the world. Those things will last that long. But it is immortals whom we joke with, work with, marry, snub, and exploit. Immortal horrors or everlasting splendors. Catch that? Every human being you interact with, It will either be an everlasting splendor, recreated into the image of God, or will be an immortal horror. And whose weight is that on? It's on us. Okay? Next to the Blessed Sacrament itself, your neighbor is the holiest object presented to your senses. If he is your Christian neighbor, he is holy in almost the same way, for in him also Christ vera laudate, the glorifier and the glorified, glory himself is truly hidden. So when I interact with another believer, I should interact with that other believer as if I am interacting with Christ himself, because I am. The Spirit of Christ, the Holy Spirit, lives in another believer. Right? When we interact with people, the weight of their glory is upon us, our back. We interact with people in such a way that they either have, because they have one of two destinations. To either be the perfected, glorious image of God that they were created to be, that is almost probably beyond our imaginations, or to be, as he said, an everlasting horror. Right? We should speak to every human being in such a way that we realize that that is their destination. And we should speak into every human being in such a way that we are trying to lead them into one direction. Now, I understand God is sovereign and God is working in their life, and understand the power of the Holy Spirit, and the power of the Holy Spirit is working in their life. But we've been given a job to interact with them as well. That is God, how God has designed that it works. He works on them, and he sends us to work on them.
And to work on us too.
And to work on us, yeah.
It's wonderful.
Yeah. And that's how he works on us. Does that make sense about why? Does that make sense to help open up your eyes as far as the image of God within another human being? Speak to other human beings. No matter what they look like and act like now, speak to them according to the potential which they hold. Look beyond what you see now and see what could be and what one day will be. Right?
If they.
Well, this is a one day it could be and will be either way.
Right. Because they have to put it into practice. I love that.
Yeah, it will, could be, or would be one of two ways.
Yeah.
Right? We don't deal with mortals. We deal with immortals. Right? But that's important, because now here's think about this. You can be dealing with the most annoying, frustrating, whatever person who wants to be more like Jesus.
That's right.
Or you could be dealing with the kindest, nicest, least annoying person who wants nothing to do with following Jesus.
Right.
Which is the more constructive conversation to have?
Yeah, the first one.
Right. You see that? You look beyond what's there in front of you now, and you look at what will be and what could be. And that's how, if you have no respect for them by what you see now and the way they're interacting now, that you understand the weight of their glory is upon you. The glory that they will one day bring to Jesus is upon you to help them move that direction. Okay. So reestablish, that's how you establish mutual respect as a believer. You see that potential. You see what they could be. Establish or reestablish safety in order to have the free flow of information in the pool of shared meaning. So, what was the pool of shared meaning? There's what I know, there's what you know, and there's what
We know.
we know. What can we? Only thing we can have a conversation about.
We know.
What we know. That's the only thing possible to have a conversation about. All right. So moving on. Don't act on emotions. Right, and that's the hard one, isn't it? So how do you have to? What did we say? You have your emotions. You have the facts here, and your emotions here. And what did you have in between those two things? There's a story. So how do you control your emotions? What do you have to? The facts, you have no control over. The facts are the facts. What is it between the facts and your emotions that you have control over?
Your response.
Yeah, your story. The story you tell yourself, the response. Right? So what do you have to do? You have to take control of your stories. That's where we're going to pick this back up. So in this, we were talking about this last week. One of the hardest things about this is to learn to take control of that. Right? So begin with only the facts. Separate fact from opinion. Really truly test, is that really truly a fact, or is that simply how I'm interpreting the facts and forming my opinion? What hard evidence do you have to support the facts? I've been working on this and there's a lot of things I've been starting to notice. I'll say something about somebody in my mind, and I'll go, and that's an opinion. I mean, I've started doing this. Daryl was asking me how I'm doing on this. I said, I'm trying to do this with everybody and everything. I'm trying to identify when I start categorizing a person, saying something about a person, and I'm going, wait a minute, that's an opinion, Kurt. That's an opinion. When I've thought, another thing I've thought, when I say something about somebody to something, about somebody, am I stating a fact about that person to somebody, or am I stating an opinion about that person to somebody? See, I've got to be careful about stating my opinions as if they were facts.
Right. You can use the word observation. Well,
I observed that they do this, this, and this.
Right.
Right. Now, we're going to get to the point that you can tell your story, but you separate it. I observed these facts.
Right.
Therefore, based on these facts,
Right.
I came to a possible conclusion.
Right.
You see how you separate them out?
Right.
It's not that you don't get to tell your story, it's that you separate it out and you tell the facts first. And this is let your yes be yes and let your no be no. This is where this is at in the Sermon on the Mount. Let your yes be yes and let the facts be the facts. Right? And let your opinion be an opinion. Okay, so analyze what stories you're telling yourself. Is your story based on facts or opinions? How is the story you're telling yourself affecting your emotions? Right? See, if you start catching that, so I talked about this. So a friend might say something, and because you know your friend, and because you know your friend knows you, they say something, and it doesn't hurt your feelings. You take it as a joke. Take somebody who doesn't know you, says the exact same thing, and you're insulted. Right? The only difference is how you reacted to what was said. You see what I mean? That's how much your emotions are affected by your stories. When your friend said it, you told yourself a story. My friend is joking to me. When a stranger said the exact same thing, you said, this stranger is insulting me. Your friend might have been insulting you. And the stranger might have been telling a joke.
Yeah, that's right.
Right? The facts are, this person said this. I factually don't know why they said it unless I ask them, what did you mean by that?
That's right.
Do you see? Now, my friend, I probably do know. He probably was joking. But in the stranger, rather than getting mad, it's like, I'm sorry, I think I might have misunderstood what you were saying. What did you mean by that?
Good. Right.
Do you see what I'm saying?
Mm-hmm.
You might have completely misunderstood it. So that's how I'm saying. Notice how your stories affect your emotions. What specific emotions are you feeling? We talked about this, that you have different types of emotions. There's different types of anger. We talk about this. There's embarrassed anger. Now, I'm embarrassed. This stranger made fun of me in public. I'm embarrassed. There's I'm mad because I'm sleepy. I'm mad because I'm hungry. I'm mad because something happened somewhere else. There's different types of what does it mean that I'm mad. There's same things, happy, there's sad. All these different emotions, they're very, very specific. Don't just say I'm happy, I'm angry, I'm mad, I'm bummed out. Say, you know what, this is affecting me in this specific way. Because you might have mislabeled your emotions. What you're calling mad may actually just be embarrassment. What you're calling mad may more be frustration. You see what I mean? What you're calling mad may be depression. You see what I'm saying? There's different. Really get an idea, because if you can name that emotion correctly, then you can look at, okay, what story did I tell myself to? Okay, go back to the stranger said this, and I'm mad, but I'm not really mad. I'm embarrassed, right? I told myself a story of how this stranger said something to make fun of me, and other people heard it, and it embarrassed me. You see what I mean? I'm mad because this guy said this. No, this guy said this in front of a group of people. They laughed when he said it, and it embarrassed me. Do you see what I mean? How that's very specific? So you take control over your actions. Notice, are you going to silence or violence? Because if you're going to silence or violence, it's because you experienced an emotion. You experienced an emotion because you told yourself a story. What are the facts and opinions behind that story? And so, are you acting on emotions or on facts? Okay. So, the way you do then is in the middle of a Christ-like conversation, you retrace your path to your actions. That's what I just said. I kind of got ahead of myself there. Right? You notice you're in silence or violence. What emotion caused the silence or violence? What story caused that emotion? What facts or opinions caused that story? Re-engage it. Instead of acting upon your emotions, re-engage your brain and backtrack to how you got there. And you watch out for these three clever stories you tend to say to yourself. I'm the victim. It's not my fault. The villain story, it's all their fault. The helpless story, and there's nothing I can do about it, possibly at all. I had no part to play in this in any way, shape, or form. Right? All right, so after you have established safety, and you may have to stop and do that multiple times by contrasting. Don't think, you know what, I apologized once, and I contrasted once, and they got mad again. Guess what? That's the going the extra mile. They ask you to walk with them one, walk with them two. You see what I mean? That's what Jesus is talking about. I already apologized once and contrasted once. Well, contrast again. Every time they get excited or you get excited, back it back down. De-escalate it. All right, you have to have these things when you speak. Confidence, right? Confidence, but it's not arrogance, because it's confidence and humility, and then the skill. And I talked about this last week. If nothing else, pick your hardest conversation that you would like to have, and don't go have it, but start having it out on paper. You see what I mean? Or in your mind. Because you'll develop the skill. You see what I mean? And then pick some easy ones and start trying to have them. This, like anything else, is a skill which you develop. Begin to develop it. All right. So this is where you're actually getting into the meat of the conversation. You ask yourself, am I pretending not to realize my role in the problem? Right? That's that whole victim, villain, helpless story. And then ask yourself this question, and this is where you're allowed them to be an actual image of God. Why would a reasonable, rational, and or decent person believe or do this? Do what they are doing. Well, I don't think they're rational, reasonable, or decent. Okay? You begin, again, go back to take the plank out of your own eye. Do not judge unless you yourself would like to be judged. Begin with the assumption, until proven otherwise, that they are reasonable, rational, and or decent. Allow them to disprove that. Right? Begin with that assumption. All right, so now here's where you actually get to speak. Here's where you actually get to speak. And so first thing is, again, now remember we traced it back. So I got mad. I said, wait, I'm mad. I'm not supposed to be speaking when I'm mad. Okay, I'm not just mad. What am I? I'm frustrated. Why am I frustrated? Well, because I told myself this story that nothing ever goes right for me. On what facts or opinions did I tell myself this story that nothing ever goes right for me? Well, this one thing happened. Well, does that mean nothing ever goes right for me? No, that means this one thing didn't go right for me. You see what I mean? I'm backing my anger back down to where it's not really anger, it's frustration. It's frustration because I told myself a story that nothing ever goes right for me, but that's not a story based on facts. Right? The fact is, this one thing did not go right for me. Is this one thing going wrong worth this response? You see what I mean? So you back it back down. You're talking to a person. Wait a minute, I'm yelling at this person. Why am I yelling at this person? Well, because I'm embarrassed by this person. I'm embarrassed by this person. Okay, why am I embarrassed by this person? Because I told myself this story that they're intentionally making me look bad. Do I know for a fact that they were trying to make me look bad? All I know is that they said this one thing that made me look bad. I don't know for a fact that they said it with the intention of making me look bad. I just know that they said that. Do you see how I backed it? But you see, that's how you trace your path backwards. So now, once you've traced your path back to the facts, I now start speaking about the facts. Excuse me, you said this.
Right, what did you mean?
It's a fact.
Right, is it?
That's just a fact. We just start with facts. You said this.
Right.
Or this happened.
Right, you did this.
Right. Then I tell my story. When you said that, or when this happened, I took it this way. You see what I mean? Not you did this, you meant to do this. No, I took it this way. I understood it this way. Do you see what I mean? So I trace my path back to the facts. And this is again, let your yes be no, yes, let your no be no. Get it as clear cut and dry as you can. This is the simple fact. Right? Or it may be, you did this. When you did this, I took it this way. I understood it to be that you meant to be like this. Do you see how I mean? So I state the facts, then I tell my story. Now, as soon as I do that, what's going to happen? And really, as soon as I state the facts, what's probably going to happen? They're probably, well, you're just trying to, no, I'm not. I'm just stating that the fact. I'm not blaming you. I'm not saying this. I'm just trying to clear up what the facts are. Somebody was telling me a story about how somebody called him a liar. And when they did that, I thought about that. What happened was they didn't call him a liar, but they said what they said they were saying wasn't true. But I'm not calling you a liar. Right? We do that, don't you? I'm not calling you a liar, but what you said is not true. You're calling me a liar. And when I did that, I started thinking about, okay, if that had been me in that situation, what would I have done? I would go back to, well, you said, I said this, and you said this. I mean, that's just a simple fact. I said this. You said that what I said wasn't true. Is that correct? I'm staying away from the liar story. If you called me a liar, stay away from that story. I said this. You said that what I said wasn't true. Do we agree on that? Well, you're trying to know. I'm trying to make sure that we're both dealing with the same set of facts.
Right.
If they're even stating the same thing that you said.
Right.
Sometimes people say you said something. It's like, no, that's not what I said.
Right, and then did you really say it? Did you not? And if you're dealing with somebody who doesn't want to fess up to what they said,
Right.
then you probably need to walk away from the conversation somewhat. Yeah,
right.
if they're going to lie about, if they truly are going to lie, if they really factually said something and they deny that they factually said something,
Yeah.
then that's when you start casting your pearls before swine. You start saying, well, I'm casting my pearls before swine. I need to step back.
But you know it because your motive was right. You see their additional response. And
Right.
they're divisive people, and New Testament teaches you should stay away from divisive people.
Right.
And Solomon said to get away from an angry man when
Right.
they're toxic. That's what you see on
Right.
like social media.
Right.
There are toxic people, but you're just doing everything you can to reach out to
Right.
them in a cautious way. And then you can see that, and then you just say, wait,
Right.
you're escalating.
Yeah.
We're not going to continue this conversation. And if you want to know why, when you calm down, I will tell you.
Yeah, you're trying to find out by not talking about the story, talking about the facts. You're trying to find out, is this person interested in the facts?
And some people aren't. They're not reasonable.
Right, they're not. But then you say, okay, we agree that I said this, and then you said this about what I said.
Right.
My story is, I understood that to be you accusing me of lying. And then you said, can you see how I would? Do you see it now? And if they come back, now you just probably going to contrast again and say, no, I'm not trying to cast all the blame on you. I'm not trying to make you black, me white. I'm not doing those things. Me right, you wrong. I'm trying to clarify what the details were and make sure that I didn't misunderstand you and you didn't misunderstand me. Do you see what I mean? How you walk yourself back to the facts, then you start with the facts and you walk it back through what happened. Does that make sense? Okay. So the other thing is, that's what I was just saying, you ask for the other person's path. That's what I was saying. I understood this to be this. What did you understand it to be?
That's a good.
How did you interpret what was said between us?
Mm-hmm.
Do you see what I mean? As I tell my story, you tell your story, then I ask you for your story. Okay, if I misunderstood you, please clarify.
That's very important because they
Yeah.
might want to hear your story, but you go the extra
Right.
mile, let them go first.
Right. So then you talk tentatively. Now this is where, take the plank out of your own eye, present your story as a story, not a fact. Consider the possibility that you could be wrong.
That's called humility.
Right, take the plank out of your own eye. So encourage testing. Make it safe for the other person to present a different opinion. In other words, when I ask them, did you see this differently? How did you interpret this? I actually let them say how they interpreted it.
Yeah.
And I don't condemn how they interpreted
You
it.
don't have to jump in right away. Let them finish
Right.
their spiel, whatever.
I let them have their opinion of how they interpreted it.
Right.
Right? Now, let's say the person doesn't want to talk. Let's say they don't want to talk.
Yeah.
What do you do then? Well, this is another acronym, but it's AMP. You ask questions.
Right. Continue.
Yeah, I mean, this is where, I mean, we're still just in the facts going into stories, right? What did you mean by what you say? What did I understand what you really said? What did you hear me say? You see what I mean? If I told you about that happening at work, I noticed the guy, it escalated really quickly. I mean, it escalated really quickly, quicker than it should have, and I was like, I don't know that he understood what I said, because if he really understood what I said, there was no reason to get as mad as he did.
Right.
So I went back to him and said, hey, can I clarify what I was saying? When I clarified what I was saying, found out he had misunderstood what I was saying.
That's common. Yeah.
Right. Instead of allowing it, hey, he got mad. Oh, he thinks that's mad. Let me show him mad.
Yeah. That's right.
No.
It escalates.
He got madder than he should have based off that conversation. He probably misunderstood something. Go back. Hey, did you understand what I said? Did I not make? I apologize if I said it in such a way that it wasn't clear. You see what I mean? And he found out. Oh yeah. Once he understood what I said, yeah, we were on the same page the whole time. Again, we actually had the same purpose. We just had hit it by two different strategies. So sometimes, again, this is where you, as the more mature person, as a disciple of Jesus, you have to take it upon yourself. And again, this is taking the weight of their glory upon you. It's your job to walk them through this conversation and move them towards maturity, right? So another thing is mirror to confirm what they are feeling. In other words, I'm not mad. Somebody says that, I'm not mad. You go, I understand why you would say that, but the way you said that makes me believe you are mad. Right? They're not talking to you. No, there's nothing wrong. The only time you refuse to talk to me is when something's wrong. Is there something I can do, or something I did do, or something? You see, I mirror back to them that, hey, this is what is going on with you. You seem upset. You seem angry at me. You seem to not be saying what you would really like to say.
Right. You're trying to create safety, extend
Right.
an olive branch, and if they accept it, fine. If they don't,
Right. I just show them back nicely what they're looking like. Hey, you yelled at me. You yelled at me, and I don't know. I didn't think we were at a point in the conversation where people were yelling.
right.
You said, something I must have misunderstood. You yelled at me. Well, I don't yell at you.
Your voice went up. That's been a
Yeah.
soft answer. Turns away.
Right.
Wrath.
Okay, so paraphrase. So this is where clarification paraphrase, where you say, so make sure I understand this correctly.
That's a good question. That's a
Yeah,
good
so let me make sure, this is a really good way to do this. Let me make sure I'm understanding what's really going on.
Right.
Let me make sure I've got the facts correctly.
Amen.
Let me make sure that I didn't misunderstand something. Start it with that. Because what you're just digging for facts.
That's a great point.
Yeah. You are upset because, right? And you would like to, in response,
Right.
is that correct?
Right.
This is where we go back to we were talking about allowing them to share their story, making it safe to test. The story, the test. You see what I'm saying? Is I got mad. Wait a minute, I should be mad. Back it down. Try to clarify the misunderstanding. All right. So there's another one. Say you're getting nowhere with someone. This is pretty much the last thing. Prime. This is when it seems you're getting nowhere. Is it possible that you are thinking that? In other words, somebody's just not talking to you, and the only time they don't talk to you is when they're really, really mad at you. Is it possible that you're mad at me because of this thing that I did?
That's right. You use the word possible.
Is it possible?
Possible.
Right? I'm inviting them to either say yes or to say no.
Right.
I'm mad at you because of this.
Right.
And I might not even say mad. I might say, it's probably not the best thing. Is it possible that you're not speaking to me? Because even you're mad is an opinion. Is it possible that you're not speaking to me because I did this? You see what I'm saying? That it's just slowing it down, pulling it down to facts, clarifying everything. Let your yes be yes, let your no be no, straightforward, clear cut. Is it possible? Are you thinking something different than what I think you're thinking, or than what I'm thinking? Is there something else going on? Do you see the level that you're putting into clarifying all this? Now, but what if they are absolutely wrong?
Which is certainly possible.
Let me ask you a question. Have you ever been absolutely wrong about something and you didn't realize how absolutely wrong you were until you said it out loud?
Yeah, sure.
Right, until you actually had to test it out in the open and you had to say out loud what was going on with you, and you're like, that really doesn't make any sense. Okay, what about give the other person that opportunity. I mean, say it is a fact. There's no shadow of doubt. They're absolutely wrong. If you were absolutely wrong about something, how would you like for people to respond to you?
That's right.
Would you not like for them to come to you in humility and say, "Hey, man, something's going on. Can you clarify what's going on? I really don't understand why we're at odds the way we're at. What the reason we're at odds the way we are is, give them opportunity." And then, I was just. And you say, wait a minute. know you're right. I'm mad at you, man. I don't even know I'm mad at you. Maybe they are absolutely wrong. But maybe they just need somebody to help walk them through to understand that they're absolutely wrong. Because if you dig in and start fighting back, what's that going to do?
That just escalates.
It's going to escalate it. Right. Are you actually, go back to your purpose. So let's say they are absolutely wrong.
Right.
Well, your purpose is to help them know that they're absolutely wrong.
Right. Sometimes they have to vent, and then they settle down, and then they're actually embarrassed. It might be the next day, and they
Right.
couldn't sleep that night, and then they realize how calm and caring you were attempting
Right.
to be.
Right. Does that make sense?
Yes.
Right. Okay. Now, do you know, and then you have to ask yourself, do you know that for a fact, or is that just opinion that they're absolutely wrong? Do you know that as an absolute fact? Could you walk into a court of law and prove it? Because if you couldn't walk into a court of law and prove it, this is not necessarily a fact, is it? Remember who he's talking about, the escalation. He's talking about going to court. Right? You let this thing escalate. You've determined this opinion. Well, they're dead wrong. They're dead wrong. They're dead wrong. You get in court, and you're like, what makes them dead wrong? Did I think they're dead wrong? You see what I mean? And now you look like the fool. Do you have your facts absolutely straight? Could you add, is it an absolute fact, or is it just an opinion that they're dead wrong? All right, so we do have to put this disclaimer in here. Do not give dogs what is sacred. Do not throw your pearls before pigs. If you do, they may trample them under feet and turn them into tear pieces. We'll talk about this more next week.
Right.
Are there people who, there is no conversation with them?
And they'll tear you to pieces.
Right, yes, there are people.
They're toxic people. You
Right.
have to be very wise as a serpent. That's
You
all.
have to be able to figure that out. And then finally, whatever you do, as you've worked back through this, you come to the end. You say, finally, you will have to come up with a plan of action to accomplish your new mutual purpose. You don't just have the conversation, right? After the conversation, you develop a new mutual purpose. You've walked through the story facts. You've walked through the stories, right? Y'all both kind of discovered the facts. You've kind of come to agree that, hey, we had two different purposes. Can we work together? Can we have a new purpose that satisfies both of us, that we're both happy with? Yeah, we can. But then just have that purpose, and what? Because what's going to happen if you just have the purpose, and then you go your separate ways? You're going to try it one way, and they're going to try it another way. So it's not just develop the purpose, you've got to agree on the purpose, and hey, how are we going to accomplish this purpose together? What's our strategy for accomplishing it